Hello, angels. Welcome back, as usual, to a little bit more music corner time, another list. And this is kind of the start of a project that I hope is going to be carrying on for the rest of this year. In case you didn't know, we are about to run up onto the halfway point of the 2020s, halfway through the decade, and just like I'm doing a big retrospective on the 2010s right now, obviously there is some retrospecting to be done on the past 5 years. So at the end of the year, I think I'm going to make a top 50 list of my favorite albums of the entire decade thus far, but before we get there, let's go into a little bit more detail. In the coming weeks and months, I'd like to make as many videos as I can, picking a specific genre and drilling down into the best of that genre that has come out before assembling them all collectively into a big list later on. And of course, I'm going to start with the worst genre to be a girl talking about on the internet, hip-hop. This is also probably one of the ones that will be the most opinionated among viewers, and I guess in that sense, all of the lists of these albums that I have written are opinionated, as in they're my opinions, informed by both my reviews of these albums at the time when they came out and the reputation they have earned in the time since through re-listens and re-evaluations, and yeah. So let's not waste any more time. That's the premise. With a few honorable mentions, and then in order, these are 15 of the best rap albums that have come out in the 2020s so far. And real quickly, those honorable mentions for fans of the most low-key, reserved possible hip-hop, check out the Ka record, A Martyr's Reward, and if you're into that nerdier, sort of more verbose, very wordy style of hip-hop, check out Rap Ferreira's Purple Moonlight Pages, though maybe check out his Twitter feed and see what's going on before you decide if you want to listen to it. For the vintage jazz and soul fans, check out McKinley Dixon's delightful Beloved Paradise Jazz. And for the experimental hip-hop fans, two of the biggest artists in the genre coming together, JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown, Scaring the Hoes. Finally, an album that seems to have fallen a little bit out of critical favor in the last couple years, but I just re-listened to it and I still think it's pretty solid, Run the Jewels with Run the Jewels 4. And with those honorable mentions out of the way, let's get started with Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers.
Grown men with daddy issues.
I think this record was divisive when it came out for a few reasons, the biggest being that it is extremely uncommercial. Many songs here willing with both their subject matter, their format, and their presentation to completely obscure themselves from the commercial lens in any way. And as a result, there wasn't really a mega hit single from this record like Kendrick's past couple albums have had, and the one song that all of the award shows seemed to hone in on is a track that didn't even land on the album. But I liked it a lot at the time, and I still do, and I think people are coming around to it more and more as time goes on, because yes, it is a challenging, uncompromising, and extremely vulnerable record, but that is exactly what makes it so good. There are just so few other rappers who even have the public vulnerability to undertake something this intimate, this personal of an exposure into their life and their traumas and the traumas of the people around them and their community. It is just such an intense listen. And for Kendrick to not only be willing to do that, but have the depth of experimental influences to pull from in order to craft all of these great ideas together into these really unique sounding rap songs. It is so consistently fascinating and interesting, from its most fun points to its most deadly serious. So many things, from the absolute venom of a song like We Cry Together to the aging well of Beth Gibbons' inclusion on this record, to yet another strong collaboration with Baby Keem on this record. It is just highlight after highlight after highlight, really. And I know to this day there are some other, trans people that are not crazy about Auntie Diaries, and I have my issues with the track, but whether his methodology was appropriate or not may be up for debate for a very long time, but his intent was clear. And yeah, what I think some people assumed may become a black sheep of Kendrick's catalog in my opinion, has the potential to age like a fine wine. It is a challenging and uncompromising record, but I think those very qualities will do it favors in retrospect if they haven't already started working like that. At number 9, my favorite moment in Black Thought's recent hot streak, his crossover with El Michaels Affair and Leon Michaels on the record Glorious Game.
Push come to shove once and for all. Moments of pause, answer the call. If it's the last dance, with that said, it's the last chance to evolve.
Now, I know the album a lot of people would select for a spot here is the Danger Mouse collaboration Cheat Codes that came a year before, and honestly, I like that record a lot too, but personally, I think the slimmed down track list of Glorious Game is perfect. This is an all-killer, no-filler, fantastic rap record. It's also an album that doesn't solely rely on Black Thought's own excellence. Some of the guest vocalists that contribute to this album are remarkable, and the lively, soulful instrumentation that some of its sunniest and most upbeat tracks are given is excellent, supportive, fantastic, beautiful arrangements. It just sounds so vivid. The sound of this record is spectacular, and underneath all of it is Black Thought continuing to be insightful, continuing to deliver compelling performances. I like everything about this album. Black Thought has sneakily been one of the best rappers of this decade so far, and if somehow this record passed you by, I highly recommend it. At number 8, another record that I think may be a surprise to some people, one that was met with positive reviews, but I think I like it more than a lot of hip-hop fans do, and that's the Amine record, Limbo.
Bury me before I'm a birdie. Don't bury me till niggas is certain. I'm singing.
Yeah, I like this thing a lot. I had enjoyed Amine early in his career. I was looking forward to where he was going to go as a singer that I enjoyed, as a rapper that I enjoyed, someone who could be serious, who could be intimate, but was also absolutely laugh out loud funny. And all of that kind of does come together on this album. This thing has head down, hard hitting rap bangers like Shimmy. It has tracks with a more sung performance like Compensating with Young Thug, and it also has Amine at perhaps the most serious he's ever been in his career on Fetus with Injury Reserve, and Jesus Christ, this Parker Corey beat is just world class. Yeah, throughout this record, I think Amine shows off a versatility that his contemporaries are just not capable of. It is not just a really consistent album with a bunch of really good highlights, but also it just shows how great, how dynamic Amine himself is as a performer. There are just different kinds of song all over this record, and he is equipped to meet the moment almost every single time. I did point out a few years ago in a video that the hot and heavy R&B crossover with Summer Walker on this record is kind of a stinker, but other than that, I think this thing is fantastic. And speaking of Injury Reserve, at number 7, the album that caused many an embarrassing tweet about inventing post-rap as a genre, By the Time I Get to Phoenix, by Injury Reserve.
My knees hurt when I grow.
Yeah, I know there are some people that would question whether or not this is even really a rap album. It is a deeply experimental twist in the wake of the passing of Grog's 1/3 of Injury Reserve, and it wears both the sadness of that event and the ambition of the remaining members of the band on its sleeve. And yeah, what results is probably the most challenging listen on this entire list. It is very noisy, occasionally abrasive, sometimes wandering very far away from any even ideas of contemporary hip-hop, but it is grounded and rooted in rap verses and rap songwriting, and so, it's a rap album. And a fucking great one. Those experiments are not just for the sake of experimenting. They play an extremely dynamic role on the really gritty storytelling of the album, and I think it just represents Injury Reserve at their peak as visionaries, as conceptualizers of an experimental future for rap music. And I am continuing to really look forward to what Richie and Parker do next, because using this as a launching point to something Amazing in the future seems imminently possible. And at number 6, a no frills, all killer, no filler, balls to the wall series of hard hitting street raps. Perhaps my favorite thing that any of the Griselda boys have ever done. That is the Conway the Machine album, God Don't Make Mistakes.
Just focus on the lyrics, don't focus on my appearance. You know you too pussy to go through it, so you fear it.
Conway first impressed me earlier this decade with the sharp and hard-hitting La Machina, but man, did he follow it up with something that is just an improvement on all fronts. In fact, this might be the Griselda formula of hard-hitting street raps full of extremely specific, real narrative, lyrical detail taken to its best conclusion. The storytelling on this album is great. Conway is just an uncompromising painter of his pure lyrical truths, and it manifests with just some incredibly raw songs like Guilty, that it just seems like only Conway could write. You need the experience and the burden of everything he's ever gone through in his life to arrive at this kind of music. And the producers and collaborators that he brought together on this record are all there to perfectly support that vision, to model that intensity. And the result, God, it works so well. If you're familiar with Conway or Westside or Benny the Butcher, you don't really need this model explained to you in any more detail. You just need to know that this is the absolute best that any of them have ever done it. Number 5, a tragically forgotten and underrated in the first place inclusion on this list. Something that I cannot believe there aren't more hip-hop heads on the internet absolutely writing for. The second collaboration from Blue and Exile, Miles.
I autograph my cash and call a cab. We on the map, back in New York City, like a Dodger cap.
This thing is amazing. I took a while to review it when it first came out, and that is because it was difficult to put the scope of this record into perspective. It is a long album with many long songs and a lot of material to work through, but wow, it is so remarkably consistent for how long it is. Every song here plays a role in the narrative, the concept of both tributing to and carrying on the ambition of Miles Davis, and the rich sound palette, occasionally even quite experimental sound palette that it deploys. It's kind of amazing that Blue and Exile were about to sit down and put together this much material that is this good. I don't know, perhaps for some people it's hard enough to sit down and listen to any album that's this long, no matter how good it is, but even then, the material here is just so consistently excellent and so interesting that, wow, I don't know, I just love this record, and I can't believe more people don't love it as much as I do. And at number 4, Backwash concludes a brooding trilogy of industrial and metal-inspired hip-hop albums with the, and I'll say this word a lot in this video, uncompromising His Happiness Shall Come First, Even Though We Are Suffering.
How to explain every shame when thought that I felt when I dealt with Cain? How did the rain bring so much pain when that could have melted just the same?
Jesus Christ, what a ripping fucking album this is. Backwash just found a way to up the intensity and to up the darkness of her sound with every new album. Her voice is sounding as captivating and as intense as it ever has on this record, and is mirrored by some absolutely insane and ridiculous guest performances. This is another one of those hip-hop group projects where absolutely everybody involved is carrying their weight, and Backwash knew exactly where to deploy all of her guests. This album is just so interesting to dig into the details of. She has so much to say, and yet paints it with such abrasive strokes that it would be so easy to be turned off by so much of this, and yet it is all just so brash, so bold, so intense that I find it completely irresistible. This is truly a spectacular record, and one that, while, sure, it may scare a lot of younger, less experienced rap fans away, I mean, if you've heard a record or two in your time, come on, give it a shot. At number 3, we'll take the record that may be the most beloved and acclaimed album of the decade, specifically among rap fans, and that's Jed with The Forever Story.
Back on the road, gone with the wind blows, packing the shows, hoes in the nymphos, platinum and gold.
And man, I do not blame them. I mean, I think you can look at anything in Jid's career, from songs like Off D's to his Double XL performance, that said that he was obviously going to be a superstar, or at the very least a critical darling one day, and he absolutely lived up to all of that potential and more on The Forever Story. Talk about the versatility of an album like Limbo. This is also an extremely versatile album, which again recruits a ton of great guests throughout, but Jid is at the center of it, making a banger like surround sound, but also able to dial it back and tell really engaging stories on a song like System or Crack Sandwich. Yeah, Forever Story is kind of the album that it seems like everyone knew Jid had in him, and why waste time? He didn't need to build up to it. He just dropped it, and it's here, and it's amazing, and I love it, and every time I listen to it, I find new things to love about it. It is just a remarkable achievement of hip-hop from someone who is one of the most promising performers of his generation, and in my opinion, already has one absolutely remarkable album under his belt. And speaking of absolutely remarkable, twice so far in this decade, I have given my prestigious Album of the Year denomination to hip-hop records, and unsurprisingly, those two records land at the top of the list. Starting at number 2 with my favorite album of 2020, the clipping record, Visions of Bodies Being Burned.
Memory glands heavy in the sky, blacked out already. Stop screaming. The flames ain't shit to a demon. Say the name.
This is the best clipping record, and that is saying something, because the clipping album Clipping is amazing, as is the narrative heavy Splendor and Misery, as is the first of their horrorcore indulgences on There's an Addiction to Blood. But Visions of Bodies Being Burned brings the highlights of all of those records under one roof. The experimental sound palette, uncompromising beats and instrumentation of Clipping, the highly effective and engaging storytelling of Splendor and Misery, and the horrorcore influences of There Existed, all coming together true to form for an utter masterpiece on Visions of Bodies Being Burned. Even down to some of the sampling and some of the inspiration behind these songs. They are just delivering hard-hitting instrumentation that is, again, I'll say it one more time, so uncompromising. The kind of material that it feels like only Daveed Diggs is willing to step to and try to rap over. And what else can you say for Daveed Diggs other than he is utterly remarkable on this record as both a storyteller, as a mystifying performer, achieving lyrical and performance feats that it's just like, how the hell did he even think to do that? And then turning around and dropping the catchiest chorus you've ever fucking heard. It's amazing. This album is amazing. Listen to it. Pitchfork for hating on Clipping for a decade now. Get over yourself. They're literally one of the best rap acts out there. And finally, to the surprise of almost no one who's paid attention to me and watched any of my videos, it is my album of the year for 2021, Little Sims, with her masterpiece, Sometimes I Might Be Introvert.
Mothers burying sons, young boys playing with guns. The devil's a liar, fulfill your wildest desires. Now I don't want to be the one to doctor this, but if you can't feel pain, then you can't feel the opposite.
What a remarkable record this is. I mean, hip-hop just so rarely sounds this grand, this big, this ambitious, from the series of interludes that, in a very To Pimp a Butterfly way, kind of guide this record through its various thematic themes, to the most grounded moments where Little Sims is telling achingly real and authentic stories of her own life from her own perspective. The vulnerability that this album puts on display is remarkable, and yet it does it through such a grand and theatrical sound palette. There is just so much at play here, so much coming together in a mystifying and brilliant way. This record is just so remarkable start to finish. It serves up so many different sounds, so many different styles, so much of just what Little Sims is capable of. It's so amazing to me that Simbi can make a song like Woman, a song like Introvert, a song like Point and Kill, a song like I Love You, I Hate You, a song like Little Q, a song like Speed, and put them all together on the same record and have them all be so good and fit together so well within the greater concept and narrative and even just the flow of the track list of this record. I just can't say enough about how good this is, how much of a benchmark, a landmark for music and rap music this specifically is. And while I get that maybe it's a little bold, maybe it's a little long for some people, to me, I don't know. It was an easy choice for best rap album of the decade so far. And that's the list. Short and sweet. Go to the comments, tell me your favorite rap albums of the decade so far, keeping in mind that this was recorded in late July of 2024. So if a total masterpiece drops in the next couple months, I am not responsible for it. And yeah, stay tuned for more videos about my favorite music of the decade so far, and for a video essay that I'm working on about one of my favorite albums of this year. Mwah.